You know, in India, I think philanthropy is going to go through an ongoing evolution because I think, firstly, for a couple of reasons. Naturally, it should have happened that given such a needy country where the disparity of wealth is high and the level of poverty, the level of need, the level of challenges in education, health, and basic infrastructures, water and sanitation is so unique that it should have been a natural reflex. But I think it's been a combination of the following. One, a high expectation from the government to play a very active and participatory role. Two, I think most of us pay our taxes because we feel a lot of that is actually going into many of the welfare schemes. For any normal person wanting to give, either in time or in terms of money, either someone who's a billionaire or someone who earns 1 lakh a month or someone who earns 10,000 rupees a month, the trust factor of who do I give to and what will happen to that has been very low. So credibility and trust has been the biggest challenge for this. So I think the evolution has to be about credibility, about knowledge, about trust, about people understanding the relevance of what they're giving for, why they're giving it, and why it'll create an impact, who I'm giving to, because not everybody can have the time to spare for that. So I think that's really the first evolution that needs to take place. And to that extent, I think it's happening. Because first is about evangelizing, first is about awareness, first is about people understanding that. And I think the combination of the government today talking about schemes and people seeing a fair amount of the impact. The fact that public servants are feeling a lot more accountable and are therefore entering into a two-way and interactive process. The CSR bill, which has brought this into limelight and made people a lot more aware of it and sort of brought it into boardrooms, executive rooms, and many else. So I think it's an evolution and a process, but in India, nothing gets solved in 2 years and 5 years. The problem with us is we look at everything as big bang solutions, and there isn't one. When you're an extremely prosperous country and the mood is a very different element of that thought process, whether we like it or not, there's a tailwind attached to philanthropy. So I think we should not discount that thought process. Here, the basic resonance with a lot of people is, I first need to do well in order to give well, which is a fair enough statement, but it doesn't have to be necessarily true. And to figure out the difference between the two is critically important. Sure, when Zaina and I looked at scaling up our foundation, which was called Share, into Swades, and then taking it to scale, which was just less than 3.5 years ago. There was an event in our lives where we were exiting our entire business. But for the last 20 years before that, we had always pledged that 10% of whatever we do in terms of our business will always go to something that we think was a needy cause for us. That was voluntary. It didn't come out of that thought process. I remember board of directors asking me, what about years in which you won't make the 10%? What about a year in which you won't make the profit? Where will the 10% come from? And I said, we'll figure that out. We're entrepreneurs, we'll figure that out, but we won't let people down. And I think you need that kind of DNA within the system. I think the gratifying part today is that the younger generation is becoming much more aware of it. They're a lot more sensitized to the situation. I think social media has played a fair amount of role to sort of democratize the disparities that are there, the problems that are there. And it's not about now rolling up your sleeve at a glass at a traffic signal and ignoring what's out there. It's not about understanding what's happening in the world and you think it's not for me. So I think that level with the younger generation is going to push the older generation, who's definitely softened to the fact, to act instead of just being soft. I think we need accountability in this sector, which is what I think I started by saying. So I think it's fantastic if people can't give their time and still give their money. But I think even at that stage, they need to be actively involved. And you can be actively involved with 10% of your stretch time. Instead of a golf game on Saturday, spend that 4 hours reviewing it on a Saturday. But there needs to be some element where you're going to hold the people that you're accountable. The point is you're coming from a position of strength and leadership. You're coming from a strength of dispersing wealth to a certain extent. You obviously have had incredible experience that will give people on the ground in the social sector a lot more learning to do. And we need to inspire people and keep them going.